Let's bring you more now on our top story. Matt Taylor is here, by the way. We will speak to him in just a moment. Let's get to Michael Carrick then, who is set for a return to Manchester United and to be in charge of Saturday's Manchester derby. Our football correspondent, Rob Dorset, still outside Old Trafford for us. How long then, Rob, before we get some sort of announcement?
I wish I knew, Rob, is the truth. Still we wait for that white smoke to come out of the chimney, metaphorically, at Old Trafford here behind me. But look, the sense I get is that we're getting closer to an announcement, to a confirmation that Michael Carrick is the Manchester United interim head coach until the end of the season. The impression I get is that Manchester United would like to put that to bed, confirm it and get it out of the way tonight if they possibly can, so that Carrick can focus on the job of beginning training the players at Carrington's training ground tomorrow, because the players have had Monday and Tuesday off. Tomorrow they are back in preparing for a huge game here at Old Trafford on Saturday lunchtime. It's the Manchester derby, United taking on Manchester City. What a baptism of fire it's likely to be for Carrick, with Manchester City on Saturday and then Arsenal away in his second match in interim charge. But as I say, we've known for some time now that there's a broad agreement, a verbal agreement between Carrick and the Manchester United bosses. Talks went on late into last night, beyond 11 p.m, I'm told, until there was finally a handshake and a verbal agreement between both sides that said, yep, let's get this done. The rest of the detail has been in the hands of the lawyers all day today as they try and finalise those details about the contract for not just Michael Carrick but all of his backroom staff as well. Remember, Steve Holland is part of that, the former England assistant manager under Gareth Southgate, Jonathan Woodgate as well, who was assistant to Carrick at Middlesbrough, Travis Binion, long-serving youth coach here at Manchester United, and Johnny Evans, who only joined the club back in the coaching setup last week to support Darren Fletcher when he was in caretaker charge. So an awful lot for the lawyers to get through, but my understanding is that those contracts are pretty much ready to go. We just need confirmation from Manchester United that they have been signed and that Michael Carrick is the new main man here at Old Trafford until the summer at least. As soon as that happens, as soon as we get that word, we'll tell you on Sky Sports News.
Thank you very much indeed. Let's just talk a little bit. Rob mentioned there that Michael Carrick will want to get out on the grass and training his players. As someone who would have played as a left-back, a left wing-back, a left-sided midfielder, is the conundrum of this back three that Ruben Amorim tried to implement, is it that difficult, or was there another issue with the way that tactically Manchester United tried to set up under him?
I think there's pros and cons to playing a back three or back four. In my experience as a player and as a manager, for a back three to work, you have to have outside centre-backs that are willing to step in. Your wing-backs have got to be comfortable pressing the opposition's full-backs. There is more to it. When you play a back four, it can be simpler. But I'd say both have pros and cons. I think just looking at Manchester United, it's quite clear from inside and outside the football club that they will change to a back four. Does that make things easier? I think that what Michael will have to do is he'll have to work on pressing positions out of possession, what that looks like in a back four, because they've been playing a back three when the previous manager was there. That's why it's imperative that this deal gets done as soon as possible so that he can get on the training pitch with the players, because there'll be a huge amount of information that he'll have to get into his players, because they're playing at the weekend against Manchester City. It doesn't get any more difficult, really, especially with it being his first game, if he is confirmed this evening. So, look, Michael will want to get on the grass. I'd assume that if it does go through, Michael and his coaching staff will probably be the first ones in the building tomorrow at the training ground.
Should it be difficult to transition from one style to another, particularly mid-season? And was there ever a switch when you were playing where you thought, this is too different to what we were doing before?
No, because formations, you're talking about 4 to 5 yards. That's what you're actually talking about in formations. There's a lot of onus put on formations, but I watch a lot of football, and your team could be playing a back four but building a back three. You could be playing a front three but press as a front four. You could press as a front two, but actually you're playing three up front. Football is so fluid nowadays. We put a lot of onus on formations. I think footballers need to be adaptable. Listen, we're not talking about an under-16, 17 team here. We're talking about Manchester United. Those players will understand the information that they're given by their manager. It's then up to him to deliver it on the training pitch and them to go out and put it into fruition on the pitch.
Therefore, given what you've just said, were you surprised that so often the focus of the conversation was that it's the formation alone that is killing Manchester United and meaning they're not winning as many games as they perhaps should be?
From my perspective, from the outside looking in, every time you picked up the paper post Manchester United playing, the one question that the manager was asked then was, are you going to change your formation? He stuck to his plan. He said no. He said, I will make this work, his 3-4-3 formation. It didn't. And ultimately, he lost his job, I think, because of that. Where there needs to be a clear understanding is between the next interim manager or the next full-time manager and the director of football. And providing there is that moving forwards and you have them both in harmony with each other, then the football club starts to look a different place. You can't have a manager pulling in one direction, a director of football wanting to go in another. Everybody needs to be heading in the same direction.
Which was one of my questions. I don't know how often you would have worked with a director of football, but as to how much influence they should have, or obviously we understand these days that directors of football work with recruitment and they do other certain things, but if you had Jason Wilcox, for example, coming to you on a Friday morning and saying, you should be playing 3 at the back or you should be playing him, would you as a manager say, clear off, that's none of your business? Or that's my decision as the manager. I want a clear line of things that I welcome your input on and other things which I don't really think it's your place to be coming and chipping in with your 2 penneth.
I would say that those conversations wouldn't be having on a Friday morning if you've gone about it and you've got a working relationship with your director of football. I've worked with more than one director of football. Everybody's different. But I think what you have to understand is that the manager and the director of football, alongside the head of recruitment, alongside the head of analysis, alongside the head of performance, all of those people need to meet, get in a room together and actually know that we need to be going in the same direction here. We can't have one of us going off to the left and 4 of us going off to the right. It doesn't work. And players will sniff that out. Players will see it because they'll understand that there might be a rift between the manager and the director of football. I think what Manchester United need to get back to, and it looks like they are, is that everybody's as one, because there's not one employee or one footballer at a football club who is bigger than the team. And therefore, that's why I think if Michael goes back in there, he knows that, he understands that. Jason and I would assume the board, the Ineos board, have decided that he's the man for them. He's the man for them because he understands the football club. But going back to it, director of football and the head coach should be working in unison together because ultimately they should want the same thing, which is 3 points on a Saturday afternoon. A
reminder, we'll get team news from St James's. The former West Ham, Bolton and Portsmouth midfielder Matt Taylor is alongside us. Good evening.
Good evening.
I must also say probably one of the most humble footballers I've had on this show because you're almost embarrassed about watching those back.
I wouldn't say embarrassed, it just seems a lifetime ago. Look, I'm dining out on them still currently.
And rightly so.
Yeah, so, no, some really good memories. Fond memories, obviously. Scored some really good goals and just fortunate enough to play in some very good teams. And I think I took a risk in my younger days and I'd shoot from pretty much anywhere. Is
there a particular top goal, especially of the ones that we've just watched?
I enjoyed the one at Sunderland because of what it meant to us at the time. We had gone 1-0 down and I actually only shot because our striker, from memory, Dario Silva, was off the pitch injured and we didn't have a number 9 on the pitch and the ball got flicked round the corner and the rest is history. And I think now looking back, having retired, they're the moments at which you remember. They're the moments at which they make you really happy and proud about what you achieved as a footballer.
Matt, we will talk a lot more about some of your former clubs a little bit later on. Let's get to our top story, though. Michael Carrick is all set for a sensational return to Manchester United with the former midfielder set to be in charge for Saturday's Manchester derby. Our football correspondent, Rob Dorset, is live at Old Trafford for us. Good evening. How long, then, do you think before this is confirmed, Rob? And what is it about Michael Carrick that's seen him get this role?
Not long, Rob. I'd expect Manchester United to probably give us confirmation at some point this evening because they would like Michael Carrick and his new backroom staff to take charge of training tomorrow. For the first time, the Manchester United squad will be back into the Carrington training ground, and they want to hit the ground running as they prepare for a massive Manchester derby here at lunchtime on Saturday, live on Sky Sports, of course. But yeah, I'd expect Manchester United to probably try and confirm the appointment this evening if they possibly can. But it's in the hands of the lawyers right now, and we know how long that can take and how problematic it can be. We told you earlier on today that there was broad agreement between Michael Carrick and Manchester United's bosses after talks that went on late into last night. They were talking beyond 11 p.m, I was told, and then they all went to bed and having shook hands on a verbal agreement for Carrick to take over. But it's the legal details, the contractual stuff, and all the contractual stuff of his backroom staff that they've been dealing with today and isn't yet completed and signed, as I understand it. In terms of when we'll hear from Michael Carrick, I don't think there'll be any rush. I expect him to do some media duties for the club, of course, and as soon as we get confirmation that he's been appointed, we will hear from him from the Manchester United TV perspective, I'm sure. But don't expect him to sit before the media and answer some of our questions before Friday, probably, because I think United want the entire focus on that game and his preparations for that game, and they'll do a pre-match news conference which will tie in with Michael Carrick's first introductory news conference, I would expect, probably Thursday or Friday ahead of the game against Manchester City. Why has he got the gig? Well, I think Manchester United's bosses have learned a lot from Ruben Amorim. I think they felt that it was too big a job for him. Amorim, I was told after he was sacked last week, had told some of his friends that he was surprised just by how much noise there was about Manchester United, how much spotlight was on it, just how difficult the job was, that nobody appreciates until you're actually sitting in that hot seat. That's why they wanted to go for a Manchester United old boy, somebody who knows the territory, knows the environment. And they compared Carrick with Ruud van Nistelrooy and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and I think it's Carrick who impressed them the most with his experience, with his tactical plan, with the fact that he would work within the structure at Manchester United and work closely with Director of Football Jason Wilcox, and also play the sort of style of football that Manchester United want to see here at Old Trafford, a possession-based attacking football, which we saw him do to some extent with success, other times at not so much success at Middlesbrough. So yeah, he's the man they wanted. I think it's a sensible appointment from Manchester United, and I'd expect it to be confirmed at some point this evening.
Just give us some details as well about his backroom staff, Rob.
Yeah, there were some surprises there when we heard this morning that Steve Holland was going to be amongst his backroom staff. He will be Michael Carrick's assistant. Of course, we know him so well of late as Gareth Southgate's assistant with England, 4 major tournaments, and it was Holland who was the tactical man of the duo, the man who did all the work on the training field with the players. And of course, he worked with some of the best players in world football with England, and so nobody with a reputation here at Manchester United will faze him in any way, especially with his experience at Stamford Bridge with Chelsea before that as well. We know that Jonathan Woodgate is going to be alongside Carrick, who worked with him at Middlesbrough, a confidant, very close friends off the pitch as well. We know that Travis Binion is going to be working with him, a long-serving junior team coach here at Manchester United, and Johnny Evans as well, who was brought in to support Darren Fletcher last week when he had those 2 matches in caretaker charge, is probably the best way to describe it. Johnny Evans staying on to work under Michael Carrick as well. So a breadth of experience and different skills there, I think Manchester United would feel, in terms of the backroom staff working with Michael Carrick. Darren Fletcher, by the way, is going to go back to the under-18s where he was before he was asked to step up. So all of that we expect to happen, but we wait from the nod for Manchester United. We wait for the white smoke to emerge from Old Trafford behind us. And when we do get confirmation that Michael Carrick has signed that contract and he is the interim manager, the interim head coach, I should say, of Manchester United for the rest of the season, we'll bring the news to you straight away on Sky Sports News.
Rob, thank you very much indeed. So we await the confirmation from Manchester United on Michael Carrick. But Matt Taylor, someone who's played against him so many times, you might have a little bit of a steer on the type of character he is, but coaching credentials-wise, is he someone to steer Manchester United through to the end of the season, do you think?
If you look at the first time that he took interim charge at Manchester United, since then he's gone away. He's been manager for 2.5 years at Middlesbrough. What I like about him is that he's very clear on the way that he wants to play. And he's got 46% win rate at Middlesbrough in the Championship, which isn't easy. Didn't manage to get them over the line. Lost his job halfway through the year last year. So, look, he's a player that ultimately, as a manager, will understand what Manchester United need, what they want. But also what I really like is that he's hopefully going to be able to bring in his staff with him, which, having been a manager, I know how important that is. He's also, hopefully, as you say, going to bring Steve Holland in alongside him. What a masterstroke that is. Somebody from outside of his centre, but somebody who has unbelievable experience. I think Manchester United need to get a connection again with their supporters. This gives them an opportunity to do that.
Do you think, or how do you think this appointment reflects on Ineos and any succession planning there might have been with Ruben Amorim in the job?
Well, I'm not sure there was any succession planning. The whole point of having this sort of modern football sort of sporting leadership structure is to have contingency plans for things going wrong. So where was the contingency plan? When Ruben Amorim left the club, we've been told that there was a choice between Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Michael Carrick. Now, when Ineos came in and bought 30% of Manchester United, they said everything was going to be best in class. But look at all the decisions they've made. How many of them have been the wrong decisions? And nobody can tell me that at the start of this season there was any plan that involved Michael Carrick being the manager for 5-6 months. Nothing against Michael Carrick. But if you look at his CV, for instance, Middlesbrough last season, they finished 10th. They won 18 games. They lost 18 games. They lost 18 times in the Championship. There is no way, under normal circumstances, that he would be on a short list of somebody to take over as the full-time Manchester United manager.
Well, he's not the full-time manager, is he?
But why do United need an interim manager? Well, it's January.
I think the point would be that if you look back to last season, that they were so keen to get Amorim in now, and he said, no, I want to wait until the end of the season because I think that'll be easier. So they got him in. Ultimately, that hasn't worked. But you would think that those three behind you are looking at the market in the summer and thinking there are some heavyweight managers that are going to be available in June, July that we can't get now. So let's get Michael Carrick to see us through to the end of the season, hopefully get us into the Champions.
How many of those heavyweight managers are going to want to go to Manchester United, with all due respect? People talk about Thomas Tuchel.
Do you think it's lost its pull?
Certainly. People talk about Thomas Tuchel. United spoke to Thomas Tuchel. There were reports that he had lunch with Jim Ratcliffe in Monaco, and they couldn't do a deal for him to become the United manager because they weren't able to agree a contract with him. He's the England manager. He's going into a World Cup. The World Cup, if England do well, is not going to be over until the middle of July. Do the FA want their whole preparations in the World Cup to be destabilised by the fact that Thomas Tuchel has potentially agreed a deal with United? Certainly not. So if he's going to go to United, you would think that talks would begin towards the end of July. Now, that is far too late for Manchester United. There are going to be lots of jobs available. There are lots of managers who are going to be available as well this summer. But how many people have faith that Ineos will pick the right person for the job in the summer?
For someone who's been a caretaker manager, and let's just throw the fact that you're also playing into the mix as well, which I don't think we'll see Michael Carrick doing, although could make the argument he could still pick a pass even at his age. How difficult is it? And I assume even more so to command the respect of a dressing room when you're also still one of them, a player.
Very difficult for me in the situation that I undertook, but
which was at Swindon.
But I look at Michael now, and I think one of the first things that he has to do is, when he addresses the players tomorrow morning, is being firm and forthright with exactly what his expectations are from them. Because we can sit here and talk about managers and coaches all we want for as long as we want to, but ultimately it will come down, and always does come down, to the players. His players at Manchester United, or those players at Manchester United, have been underperforming for the levels at which they can reach. I agree with you that Manchester United now isn't the pool and doesn't have the draw that it did when I was playing. So ultimately, they want to get back to that point. Ineos didn't buy a 30% stake in the club to not be successful. They bought it to try and take it to the next level. it's a tough job for Michael. Of course it is. But I think what you have to see now is I want to see everybody at Manchester United pulling together. There's no splintering of somebody going off in this direction, somebody going off in that direction. It has to be a one club ethos. And if you look at when they were successful under Sir Alex, we most definitely had that feeling. So, look, it's interesting to watch. Hopefully it will get announced this evening. And when it does, there'll be a lot more talk about how they move it forwards. But ultimately, Michael has got to play Manchester City and Arsenal in the next 2 games.
How do you get the buy-in from the players? Is it as simple as, look, if you want to be playing in the Champions League next season, you better pull your weight for the next 17 matches? Because there is, and we touched on it yesterday, might be in the odd player's mind, well, I'll be here in June, you won't.
There's always going to be that. As a player, as a manager, Michael looks like he's going to sign a short-term contract. There'll be players there that have 4 or 5 year deals still waiting to see them out. Of course you're going to have that problem as a manager or as a coach. But the one thing he has to do is, and as crazy as this may sound, is take those players back to basics. What is it that stands for to play for Manchester United? What are the expectations? One of the big things that every football supporter up and down the country wants to see is their players giving 100% for their badge. And Michael's been there, he's walked in those shoes, he understands what is required to be successful at Manchester United. Therefore, he's already got a head start of what it might look like. But if it was me, I look at Manchester United and they concede too many goals. They need to get back to basics. And I think if you look at Michael, he obviously has a clear structure of exactly how he wants to take this team forwards. There will have been a plethora of managers wanting this job. This is a fantastic opportunity for Michael to go and be successful. He's a young English coach, and I would like to see everybody in the game getting behind him. But make no mistake, he's got to win games for Manchester United.
Just to go back to Ineos then, and you spoke a little bit about the lack of contingency planning. Is it as simplistic as saying if he doesn't get them into the top 4 or 5, this has been a complete waste of a season?
Absolutely. I think you're 100% right. And I think it also shows the fact that in this modern age, to be a successful head coach, it's how you handle your relationships behind the scenes at clubs as well. But if you see what happened with Enzo Maresca, it wasn't a fact that results were bad and he lost his job. It was more to do with his relationships with the sporting directors and the medical and the performance department. And you've seen that with Ruben Amorim as well, the way he was behaving in some of those news conferences towards the end of his time at United, and also that infamous meeting that he had with Jason Wilcox, which didn't go well. I think with Michael Carrick, you're going to get someone. He's not a yes man in the same way as Liam Rossini is not a yes man, but he's more of a company man. He understands how Manchester United works, and he understands that he has to fit into that structure behind the team as well.
Let's have a look then at the list that he is about to join Michael Carrick, and also the immediate task ahead of him, which Matt has touched on. Good evening, Dave Reed.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. This appointment will buy Manchester United a little bit of time, really, to look for a longer-term appointment to take the club forward. But long-term hasn't tended to be the outcome since Sir Alex Ferguson. We can have a look at all the United managers since 2013. We've got the permanent ones in the blue colour and the temporary are in the red. David Moyes right at the top of the list, lasted just 10 months, with Ryan Giggs then coming in before Louis van Gaal. 2 years later, it was the turn of Jose Mourinho, but he was gone in December 2018. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer initially came in on a short-term option, but was then given the job on a permanent basis. And actually, his reign was the longest of anyone since Sir Alex, at just under 3 years here. Following Solskjaer, though, 2 interim appointments. We have got Michael Carrick, who looks like he's going to be back, and then Ralf Rangnick as well. Erik ten Hag was next before Ineos sought out the new up-and-coming coach in Europe, Ruben Amorim. But he is out the door, and it's actually Darren Fletcher who has been in charge in 2026. 10 managers in under 13 years. And with the Manchester derby approaching fast this weekend, those managers that have arrived and faced Pep Guardiola have not been consistent against the City rivals. 13 wins it's been for Pep Guardiola, just 9 for United managers combined.
So
Yeah, all that to come. But we start with Manchester United as we await confirmation. Michael Carrick has been appointed interim head coach until the end of the season. We can head to Old Trafford right now and join our football correspondent, Rob Dorset. Good afternoon to you, Rob. It feels imminent, but what is the latest?
Yeah, I don't think we're far away now, Dharmesh, but United are taking their time over this, aren't they? Remember, Ruben Amorim was sacked a week ago, and Jason Wilcox, who's been leading the search for an interim manager, the director of football here at Old Trafford, has not wanted to rush this, partly because he's been focusing on Darren Fletcher, who's been in that caretaker role covering the team for the last 2 matches, but also because United want to make sure they get this appointment right, albeit they want to get the appointment in the summer right, even more so for the longer-term future of Manchester United. But getting the interim right, they think, is absolutely key as they try and get the guarantee of European football, maybe even Champions League football this season as the only goal left for the Manchester United squad to aim for. And so that's why they've not rushed things. They've taken their time in talking to various candidates, all of them former Manchester United old boys, of course, in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Ruud van Nistelrooy and Michael Carrick, who we now expect to be confirmed very, very shortly. My understanding is that all was agreed, everything was thrashed out between Carrick and Manchester United's bosses late last night. Those talks went on until beyond 11 p.m, I'm told. And now all that remains is the final detail with the lawyers, the final legal detail of his contract. A contract, by the way, that will run until the end of June. And we wait for confirmation from Manchester United that has all been done. I don't think there's any concern that this will not get done. I think there's confidence on both sides now that everything has been agreed and that it's now a case of crossing the T's and dotting the I's and making sure lawyers on both sides are both happy before Carrick signs that contract to be the main man here until the summer.
Yeah, Rob, you mentioned the other candidates that Manchester United were looking at, notably Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. It appears that Carrick has beaten Solskjaer to this role. So why Carrick and not Ole?
Yeah, well, look, the first thing to point out is that United wanted an old boy. I think when Ruben Amorim left the club, some people very close to him explained to me that he'd felt that the job was maybe a bit too big for him and that it surprised him just how much noise there was, how much expectation, how much spotlight there was on the manager at Old Trafford. I think it's pretty clear that United's bosses didn't want to make the same mistake again for this interim appointment. And why did Carrick get the nod? Well, first and foremost, he does know Manchester United very, very well. He's been caretaker manager here twice, either side of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer getting the role as well. And of course he's won everything there is to win in the domestic game under Sir Alex Ferguson. He's one of the legends of Manchester United in their most successful period as a football club. So all of that made them think that he'd be very comfortable in the environment. He wouldn't be overawed by it. He made it clear, Michael Carrick, in conversations that he was prepared to work with the structure that United have. Wilcox is very, very influential and important when it comes to deciding the United philosophy, the tactics, the way of playing. And Carrick has made it clear he's happy to work with Wilcox in that role. And I think crucially he didn't expect to get a substantive job beyond the end of the season, where it had been suggested to me that was something that maybe Solskjaer was pushing for. Also, I think United were very impressed by his tactical plan that he presented to them at interview. And crucially, that at Middlesbrough he played with a very possession-based style of play, which United like here. It aligns with what Jason Wilcox wants to do as well. So it felt like a good fit, and I think having spoken to all three ex-United players, I think it was pretty easy for Manchester United and Jason Wilcox to make that decision of where they wanted to go. We've also got a good idea, by the way, about who his backroom staff will be, and the big surprise there is Steve Holland, assistant to Gareth Southgate with England, of course, for 4 major tournaments, and really the tactical nous behind Southgate's time there. Exactly the same when Steve Holland was at Chelsea as well. So he's a key appointment to stand alongside Michael Carrick as his assistant. Interesting as well that Jonathan Woodgate will be joining him. He was his assistant at Middlesbrough, and somebody that Carrick knows very, very well and is very, very close to. Of course, Woodgate used to play with Wilcox at Leeds United all those years ago, so those two men know each other very, very well. There's also going to be Travis Binion, a long-serving youth coach here at Manchester United, and Johnny Evans alongside Carrick as part of that coaching team. Remember, Evans was only brought in last week to try and assist Darren Fletcher Fletcher, by the way, we expect to return to his job in charge of the United under-18s. So you take all that into account, and I think we've got a pretty clear picture of where Manchester United are going from here and what their plan is for the remainder of this season. Now we're just waiting for them to confirm it and tell us that the deal's done.
Yeah, we await that confirmation. Rob, at Old Trafford, thanks for now.
Bueno, al final el Rayo ya sabemos que viene de una dinámica negativa, pero ha ido poco a poco a mejor. Creo que han hecho un partidazo y a lo mejor un empate hubiese sido más justo porque ellos sí que es verdad que han chutado más y a lo mejor han tenido alguna más. Pero bueno, yo creo que también por su dinámica de que les ha costado empezar a ganar y tal, no sacan los puntos, pero creo que si siguen trabajando así pueden estar ellos muy tranquilos de que les va a salir las cosas. Sí, yo creo que él era el que más ganas tenía de ganarnos porque al final somos como los alumnos y que te gane el alumno es una mierda, pero bueno, lo queremos mucho, lo seguimos respetando como entrenador y más como persona, así que toda la suerte es para él. Bueno, sí, está pasando un mal momento, yo lo sé, el equipo yo creo que hay gente que es un poco consciente, pero yo sé de primera mano que lo está pasando mal y creo que es el que más se lo merece porque es el que lo da todo y eso es lo más importante. No me gustaría cruzarme con Barrio, porque el playoff es un equipo que siempre se me da mal, siempre nos complica la vida y creo que es muy complicado. Bueno, lo que quiero es ir a México y si además queda Pichichi ya ese es un regalazo, pero lo importante es lo de hoy que hemos ganado y nos vamos a México.